Hi, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. My name is Louis Columbus, and I'm here with Larry McAlister. And Larry is the Vice President of Global Talent at NetApp, and he's focused on transforming NetApp talent, resilience, and overall structure and go-forward strategies with regard to digital transformation in HR. Has a long, successful career in HR of leveraging powerful technology to introduce internal talent marketplaces, which he's doing today. And Larry believes in leading with authenticity and creating a place where NetApp talent can continue learning and grow their careers. Also joining us today is Stephen Owens. He's Vice President of Talent Acquisition and Planning at Protective Life, where he's responsible for hiring and support rapid growth in his role. He's also modernizing and recruiting function to compete for talent in a world of changing skills and needs. Previously held talent management and learning and development functions at Protective Life. Welcome, gentlemen. To begin our panel, Larry, my first question is for you is, how do you determine the need for AI in your company's recruiting process?
Yeah, that's a super important question. So we're in the middle of a business transformation as well as an HR transformation. So I wonder how many people that are in the audience are saying we are becoming a cloud company, because we are definitely becoming more and more of a cloud company. So when you're becoming a cloud company, you're competing with almost every other company for the same exact talent all over the world. So if you cannot compete at the speed of technology, you're going to lose. And I told my CEO staff, I'm guarantee you without an AI recruiting tool, I won't be able to get you A players. So if everyone's cool with B players that are, secondary, that's where we're headed. And I'm worried that if we wait another year to bring in AI technology to recruit, I'll be 3 years behind because my competitors will have already perfected it. So that was really the pitch. And we did a tech parade and brought in a bunch of vendors and selected Eightfold.
Stephen, with your background in sales, what do you discover about the world of recruiting when you first came into it?
Yeah, so coming in, I grew up in sales. Did not come into HR as a recruiter. This was a new opportunity for me, and held different roles. But my boss gave me the assignment to come in and to think about how we might modernize recruiting. And she thought that there was a lot of overlap in the way that you manage sales to the way that you sell positions to the candidates. And so what I realized when I got over here is that we were still doing recruiting very much the same way that we were doing it 20, 30 years ago, where you're reliant on the recruiter. As good as they are, or as average as they are, you're relying on them, their Rolodex of people that they had networked with over the years. And some of the tools had changed, so they weren't sitting there with a physical Rolodex. Now they're using LinkedIn, but really the process hadn't changed much. And so we just started looking across the landscape of technology and trying to understand what all of that meant. And it became very clear to me that you could manage a recruiting funnel and in the same way that you manage a sales funnel. And when I even started using those terms of funnel, that was something that I learned was not really a commonplace at the time in the recruiting area. So, something that I kind of took for granted is it's at the top of the funnel, it's the number of prospects, then the qualified leads all the way down until you make a sale. That you could change the labels and it looks really identical to a candidate flow and a candidate funnel through that. And so having that concept of a funnel then allows you to start to measure and track and identify where you need help, whether that's a process change or technology or whatever or a people change, whatever that looks like.
Insightful. It's a great application of your sales knowledge into excelling at HR. And I have a question for both of you. And starting with Larry, what are you now able to do with AI, expanding on your first comment?
Yeah, so I say AI gives you the ability to see the unseen immediately. You can match up at whatever level of matching up you want to do against your jobs around the world instantly. So people you would never think about searching for with a Boolean search or something with a different funnel search. This does it automatically. So I've been saying I could hire 20 sourcers, would not be able to go at the same speed as an AI matching tool. And it's been amazing at some of the candidates we might not have looked at are automatically inside of our funnel. We've been able to do great campaigns inside of the tool with much higher click-through rates and much higher rates than in any other recruiting campaign we've done, because it matches the top of the funnel so easily with us. And what we've really seen is, when you're hiring people who are just out of college, we call them early in career, between 0 and 3 years, it's tough to, analyze what their resume says. And this platform more quickly is able to analyze that and bring our early in career pool to a much larger place.
Yeah, it's fascinating to be able to use AI to its full extent, to be able to look at capabilities first over just the demographic or the chronological direction, be able to look at the strength of capabilities, the emergent capabilities. And Stephen, what have you been able to do with AI, capitalizing on that sales allegory that you mentioned earlier, looking to qualify candidates, move them through a funnel and find the most qualified ones and close them as a candidate and an employee?
Yeah, I would say it falls into a couple of categories. One is it enabled us to change some of the recruiting process that we used, or establish processes that were repeatable in places that we didn't have that before. Larry mentioned being able to go into your database and look and find qualified talent. We were operating in like I mentioned before, we were operating the same way we did 20, 30 years ago in terms of recruiting. And so, what we had in our database was fantastic information of people that were warm leads. These are people who had applied to us, we had made contact with before. But unless the happenstance occurred where the recruiter that talked to that person a couple of years ago happened to also get the role that matched up with that person's skill set, and they happened to remember, we really were not able to connect those dots. And so what we were able to do is to change some of the processes, the way we take in resumes, the way we go through the databases that we have, and get some visibility across the groups, so that we could mine that existing database of talent, and then go reach out to those people to say, hey, we didn't have a right fit for you a couple of years ago, but here's an opportunity that we think you would be a good match for. And what's so great about the AI is we can tell them exactly why we think so. And this is all stuff that in some ways recruiters were doing manually for a while, assuming that they could get to the information. But the AI is capable today of going out and completing that application or that resume. We had it from 2 years ago, but who knows what they've been doing the past 2 years? The AI does, because that's someone's updated their profiles externally, and so being able to go get that completed profile to see what that person's doing today, and then go tap that talent on the shoulder. In sales, the absolute best sales tool that you have is referral. And essentially that's what you've got with these warm leads, is it's someone who's already indicated they're interested in you enough to fill out an application, to give you their resume previously, and now you can go back and do something with it.
Let me just add to that real quick, Stephen. That's such an amazing point. I think we had 40,000 applicants in our database. And as soon as they apply, it's an outdated resume because they're doing other things. And you don't know about it. So those become dead applicants, dead data in our system. And now for the AI to go out and continue to update this, that's a gift in itself. That's something we were never able to do before. And I think, the speed of now that we can get our warm candidates, like Stephen was saying, is amazing.
The other thing related to that is we often have managers who really get stuck using experience as the proxy for skills. So I want a software developer that's developed for 10 years using this technology. My favorite is when they ask for 10 years and the technology hasn't been in existence that long. So they want 10 years, but when you really peel the onion back, why do you want 10 years? What would they have learned? Like, that's what the algorithms can tell you, is what skills they possess, having had X years of experience. And being able to show that to a manager, say, are you really want 10 years, or is it that you want this skill? And by the way, we've identified half a dozen people that you probably wouldn't have looked at because they didn't do this exact job in another company. would you consider someone like this knowing that they have this skill? And it really does open up a manager's eyes to get away from experience as the proxy and to get more towards a skills-based hiring, which frankly opens up a tremendous opportunity with broadening your diversity net, with getting a more distributed group of applicants and talent to do these jobs.
Right. I want to add to that too. We're just going to stick on this question. Eightfold talked to me about the future of AI being, 80% is the new 100%. That if you find someone that has 80% of the skills that you need, we can sort of predict other people who are at 80% in that moment in their career went on to the next step successfully. So we're starting to take that same idea and bringing it inside for our internal marketplace with a different AI tool. So using both of these AI tools to say 80 is the new 100%, you can do things that Stephen was talking about that you could never do before. Bringing in someone who has potential as well as the skill set and some predictability around that, has just changed the entire game for us.
Thank you both for so many great points. And it leads into the next topic, which is change management and getting other members of your organization to believe and to be committed to AI for being able to find those candidates with the best capabilities. How are your team members reacting? Let's start with you, Larry. How are your team members reacting and colleagues reacting to AI? How have you got them over the hump to look at change management in a positive light?
Yeah, step one was to tell everyone that it's not a science fiction movie. The bots aren't coming to get you. We're never going to replace human interaction. The job is for technologies to get you faster to the human interaction. So that was the overriding sort of change management. The second one was showing different leaders and recruiters what actually going into the platform and showing how it worked. And we were getting like oohs and ahs around that, wow, I couldn't even imagine what this could do. So that really helped the change management. The recruiters just took to it immediately. After they got over the fear of it a little bit, they just took to it immediately. And our adoption rate, was steadily increasing all the way. And the best thing, my favorite line ever, I've been waiting 30 years to hear this line. We had a hiring manager right at the beginning say, stop sending me so many qualified candidates, I can't look at all of them. So I've been waiting 30 years for someone to tell us that, and it happened, in the first 2 weeks of launching the tool. So it's exciting.
That's great. I've not had that story yet, but looking forward to the day. So change management is critical. I think lessons learned in this, this is, in my career, I don't know that I've done anything more difficult than bringing in AI into something that, because it was so new and so unknown, the change management was, I stepped in a lot of puddles along the way. So I would say first the recruiters, I had the same scenario. First, it's hey, are you trying to cut costs to where's this money coming from and that sort of thing. And I was very, very transparent that this was a play first to automate. Because we can go through those resumes. We did some speed tests to show them just how fast it was. The parser gets through it in less than a second. It takes, on average, somewhere between 7 and 10 seconds for the recruiter to spin through those. And so just showing them the time that they could save, the ease at which they could share profiles and those sorts of things were really, really important. It really broke free for the recruiters when we had a spike in applications in one of our high volume areas, that there was absolutely no way that prior to the AI, we would have been able to fill that need without going to vendor support. And we were able to deliver that 2 weeks earlier than the deadline was. And the recruiters became believers at that point. They started to trust the matching system and that sort of thing. The bigger change management happened really with our IT organization and the challenges with the sensitivity of managing the candidates' data and the employee data, all of those things that there's so much attention on right now. This was really the first AI that we brought into the company of any significance that would hit this big of an audience. So there was a lot of angst in the organization. And a couple of companies that we were working with were startups, and we're a 115-year-old company that likes to do business in a very established, non-threatening way. and it really takes us out of our comfort zone to work with startups. And to the credit of the organization, they didn't necessarily like it, but they were willing to go and willing to try it, to put in the measures that needed to be in place, to do the testing that needed to be needed to be done. But that change management across the groups, from IT to the managers to the recruiting team, is just absolutely critical if you're trying to stand something like this up for the first time.
Excellent insights, both of you. Thank you, gentlemen. And you touched briefly on the outcomes you're seeing. Can you share, starting with Larry, coming from the tech space and the high level of demand for talent, especially around AI and machine learning itself, what are some of the metrics that you're the most proud of that you've been able to run up using the Eightfold platform?
Couple of things, I'll call back to the beginning of when I talked about competing for cloud talent. They have won. Cloud talent has won the market. So we get twice as many I don't want the offer at the offer stage because they have so many competing offers, twice as many. So just think what that does to your time to fill. It takes twice as long to get to the offer stage because they can take their time. They're being recruited so heavily, they can take their time to get there. So our time to fill had the chance to skyrocket because of the competition. But the ability, as Steve was talking about earlier, to get the parsing done so quickly and get to these candidates first or fastest allowed us to maintain primarily our time to fill. And we cut some heads in order to, when COVID first hit, we eliminated a couple of recruiters thinking we weren't going to hire as much. And we didn't hire any recruiters back because this tool has allowed us to go with such productivity that we can run leaner and just as efficient in the most competitive markets in the world. And a lot of times when you're in competition like that and things are going slower, you give up on all the other stuff. I can't worry about diversity. I can't worry about any stuff like that. And we don't have to forsake that. In fact, we can double down on diversity because the way the platform can help us find diverse candidates and diverse pools. So it's been a great lifesaver for us in a very difficult time.
And Stephen, coming from a services business, over 100-year-old services business in insurance, what were some of the results you're seeing that are noteworthy from a metrics or from a KPI standpoint that you can share?
Sure. So there's, when I started looking at this, I was looking as a sheer productivity play and was measuring things like the recruiter's time. And then it occurred to me, probably someone that grew up in recruiting, it would occur to them a lot faster, is that it's not just the recruiter's time that we're saving here, because that's not a lot of money, frankly. But if we could reduce the manager involvement, the manager's time across hires, if we could reduce the number of interviews, as a for instance, or get those interviews more pointed so we could get a more thorough interview done in a shorter amount of time, that's where we would really see some savings. But initially I started tracking the things like time to submittal, which is the time to fill thing is so complicated and outside of the recruiter's control. What I was really interested in is how fast could we get qualified candidates that were accepted to the management team. And so started looking at that, and then of course did track the end to end, from the time a rec was open to the time that we had the offer accepted, how long that would take. And looked at that when we started with Eightfold and some of the other technologies that we were using. When we started with that, we had a significantly higher time to fill overall. And in the matter of about 8 months, we were able to reduce that to about 36% of what it was previously. And so if you start doing the math on that, just to give you numbers, like it was 67 days, and we had dropped that down to under 30 for most of the positions across the board. And if you start to scale that out based off the number Sherm gives you with lost productivity for not having a butt in seat, as they say, you can calculate pretty quickly that what we were able to drive for the business for Protective was a little over $7 million in loss avoidance for not having someone in those seats, just in the reduction of the time. So that's a real easy sell to go to an executive and say, hey, we want to spend X to get a $7 million return. Certainly. I mean, there's more involved. It's not just, you can't flip the switch and on the magic tool makes everything happen. There's a whole lot involved in that, but those are some of the measurables that we were looking at, and I tried really hard to put it in quantifiable language of the business. It's not just about the number of positions, but how did connecting dots for them to extrapolate out. This reduction in time is causing you an avoidance of the cost of X, and has been really well received. The place for us, unlike Larry's group, so we've seen certainly some benefit in the more what I'll call professional level exempt positions. The place that it's had the biggest impact on us, though, has been in our non-exempt population. So we have, as most insurance companies would, we've got a lot of production employees, contact centers, and those sorts of things. And generally speaking, your turnover is going to be higher in that environment than it is, say, for an accounting group. In a lot of cases, we were able to significantly reduce that hiring time, get more predictable with the hiring cycles, and put ourselves on a cadence where the business knew what to expect, and it wasn't this constant crazy everybody all hands on deck thing to stopped and then back to all crazy and then stopped. We were able to standardize that a little bit and give some more predictability to the business. All of those things means there's less overtime. We've seen improvement in the turnover numbers because we think the quality of hire is a little bit better. We're able to show some of those things that really impact the business.
Excellent. Thank you for a great story there. You brought together the quantitative aspects and then how you were able to scale overall HR, bringing in exempt and non-exempt, and appreciate that insight. Now, the last question is, and let's start with you, Larry, is how do you recommend talent leaders get started on their journey with talent management and talent acquisition strategies? How can they move from all these great benefits and move into taking action with it?
Yeah, so I've been saying we're living in the golden age of HR technology with the advancement of AI and machine learning, and how these smaller companies can just rapidly advance what you can do on top of your sort of standard systems that you probably have has changed the game. So if you're in this space, you have to consider yourself a technologist, not just a recruiting leader or a talent management leader. You have to be a technologist. And I don't think you can wait for IT to come to you. I don't think you can wait for, the magic tool, I think, that's going to save everything. You have to go find out what's out there. And I talked a little bit today about this tech parade that we did. We ended up bringing in 16 vendors to just see what was out there. And my head was blown, right? I was like, oh my God, I have not kept up with this as fast as I should have. And now it's changed the way that our talent strategy is being informed. It is a technology talent strategy that we'll continue to look at. And I think you're going to get bypassed if you don't start getting into that space yourself.
Stephen, what's your perspective on and advice to an HR professional just getting started?
I would advise a couple of things. I should have probably clarified in the beginning, we had almost no recruiting technology of any significance. So there's some people out there that are probably thinking, you're talking AI and I can't even get the ATS in place. I was there 2 years ago. So I fully can relate with being completely lost. And what I would say to get started is a couple of things. As Larry mentioned, you've got to go understand what's possible. I probably did 150 demos of just technology. Now I'm learning recruiting, and I had the luxury of telling these vendors, I don't know what I'm doing. You show me what you have. And doing all of those demos, what it allowed me to do is to see where AI could play. And there is a vendor for every possible spec of the spectrum that provides some sort of service. But what I was able to do is see all of that to get an understanding of what was possible. And then before making a selection, step back and say, okay, now that I know that's sort of modern recruiting and those are the technologies that are at play, what are the problems we're experiencing that I could use technology to solve? I think where most leaders get sideways with this, particularly with AI, is they get enamored with the tool, that it's a really cool thing. And let me tell you, the salespeople are fantastic at this. They know what buttons to push. They create needs where you didn't even know you had one. So being able to clearly define the problem you're trying to solve, and then going to the market with your understanding to say, okay, these are some technologies that we could deploy. How would we want to configure those? I think ultimately that's the best way to approach it. Don't find the hammer for the nail, right? Let's determine what problem you're trying to solve. Being really clear on what those deliverables need to be and what measures you're trying to improve, and then identify which tools can help you with that, and be willing to walk away from some that. There's a lot of really great stuff out there, and just from a bandwidth perspective, I had to make some decisions that we're not going to pursue this thing or this part right now because this is going to have a bigger impact for us.
Well said. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Are there any other points that you'd like to bring up that we haven't discussed? Larry?
I would just echo what Stephen was saying is the tool selection does not drive the strategy, right? The strategy drives the tool selection. And you can get caught thinking that, well, there's another one around the corner, right? There's just another one. And if I invest now, I'm going to be regret it in a year from now. So I would say you do have to pull the trigger at the right time with the right tool, have a short contract, and then continue to survey, what's going on in the market, talk to peers like we're doing here and find out what they're doing. But you can't take your eye off the ball at any time because this stuff's moving so quickly.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. Two other quick points. One is don't lead with the cost savings, because the minute you do, they're going to expect those exact numbers or better. And in really, it's really difficult to sell your recruiting team that we're not trying to replace the costs of you if you're over here telling your CFO, we're trying to replace the cost. Now, obviously, there's some cost savings associated with that, but you want to position the overall impact that you're trying to make to the organization, a byproduct of which is, generally speaking, the financials, the financial component of what it costs for the technology that you're using. And then, Larry said it much more eloquently with the strategy's got to lead, and know where your business is going. Know what you're going to have to accomplish over the longer haul before you start making the determinations of which technologies to employ. And then, recognize that it may be a series of technologies that you'll have to boot together in order to get it to work and accomplish your needs.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you both very much for your insights. It's been fascinating to talk with you and to see how AI is becoming a strategic advantage in the area of talent management and recruiting. Really appreciate you sharing so many metrics of your organization. That's invaluable in building a business case.